Welcome to Hurt to Grow, the channel that transforms your deepest struggles into your greatest strengths. I'm here to challenge everything you think you know about personal development. Today, we're diving into something that's been silently destroying your potential for years. Something you've been told is normal, even healthy, but I'm about to shatter that illusion. Before we begin this journey together, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next in this series. Leave a comment right now telling me, what's the biggest source of guilt in your life? Your answer might surprise you by the end of this video. Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to admit. The guilt you're carrying isn't helping you grow. It's actually keeping you trapped in mediocrity. You've been conditioned to believe that feeling guilty means you're a good person, that it shows you care. But what if I told you that's the biggest lie you've ever been sold? Every successful person I know has learned to distinguish between two types of guilt, the kind that propels you forward and the kind that keeps you paralyzed. Most people are drowning in unproductive guilt while completely missing the guilt that could actually change their lives. Which category do you fall into? Today, I'm going to show you how to transform that heavy, suffocating guilt into laser-focused discipline. But first, you need to understand what's really happening in your brain. The difference between guilt and shame isn't just semantic, it's neurological. And understanding this difference is the first step to breaking free from mental prison. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am bad. One can be transformed into action. The other is a bottomless pit of self-destruction. If you're watching this video, chances are you're caught in patterns of thinking that are sabotaging your success. But here's the good news. Patterns can be broken. I'm going to give you a framework that will completely revolutionize how you handle mistakes, setbacks, and that nagging voice in your head that never seems satisfied. This isn't about positive thinking or feel-good mantras. This is about rewiring your brain to use negative emotions as fuel for positive action. By the end of this video, you'll have the tools to turn your biggest source of guilt into your most powerful source of motivation. Are you ready to begin? Let's start with a question that will make you uncomfortable. How much of your daily energy is consumed by guilt? Be honest. The answer might shock you. Toxic guilt operates like a parasite in your mind. It feeds on your desire to be good, to be worthy, to be enough. And the more you feed it, the stronger it becomes. Here's what toxic guilt looks like in action. You make a mistake. You feel terrible about it. You promise to do better, but you never actually create a plan to improve. Sound familiar? That's because toxic guilt loves the feeling of remorse more than it loves actual change. It's emotional masturbation disguised as moral accountability. The neurological reality is this. When you're stuck in guilt loops, your prefrontal cortex shuts down. You literally cannot think clearly or make good decisions. Your brain interprets chronic guilt as a threat. It triggers your fight or flight response, flooding your system with stress hormones that make learning impossible. This is why people who feel guilty all the time keep making the same mistakes. They're not bad people. They're just trapped in a biological cycle of dysfunction. Toxic guilt also has a sneaky way of making you feel productive when you're actually being destructive. It feels like you're taking responsibility, but you're just spinning your wheels. The guilt spiral looks like this: mistake, guilt, rumination, more guilt, paralysis, another mistake, more guilt. It's a vicious cycle that destroys lives. But here's what's really insidious about toxic guilt. It makes you feel morally superior to people who don't feel guilty. It becomes part of your identity. You start to believe that feeling bad about yourself is evidence of your good character, that people who don't feel guilty are somehow less moral than you. This is where toxic guilt becomes truly dangerous. It stops being about improving your behavior and starts being about maintaining your self-image as a good person. The brutal truth is this: if your guilt isn't leading to specific measurable changes in your behavior, it's not guilt. It's just self-indulgent suffering. Real accountability looks different. It's quick, it's specific, it's focused on solutions, and it leads to immediate action. Everything else is just emotional theater. So ask yourself right now, are you feeling guilty to feel better about yourself, or are you feeling guilty to actually become better? The answer will determine your future. Now that you understand what toxic guilt looks like, let's identify the specific thought patterns that keep you trapped. This is where things get uncomfortable. Pattern number 1, I should have known better. This phrase is guilt's favorite weapon because it's impossible to argue with and impossible to fix. I should have known better assumes you had access to information you didn't have, or wisdom you hadn't yet developed. It's a form of time travel that only works in reverse. Pattern number 2, I'm such a terrible person. This is where guilt transforms into shame, and shame is the quicksand of personal development. When you make your behavior about your identity, you create a self-fulfilling prophecy. You start acting like the terrible person you believe yourself to be. Pattern number 3. I always do this. The word always is guilt's way of making a single mistake feel like a life sentence. Your brain loves patterns, even false ones. When you tell yourself you always do something, you're literally programming yourself to keep doing it. Pattern number 4. I've disappointed everyone. This is where guilt becomes a form of mind reading that would make psychics jealous. You assume you know what everyone else is thinking and feeling about your mistake. You become the prosecutor, judge, and jury of your own imaginary trial. Here's the difference between toxic guilt and healthy accountability. Accountability asks, what can I learn? Guilt asks, how bad should I feel? Accountability is forward-focused. It's about prevention and improvement. Guilt is backward-focused. It's about punishment and shame. Accountability creates systems. Guilt creates suffering. Accountability builds character. Guilt destroys it. The question you need to ask yourself is this. When you make a mistake, do you spend more time figuring out how to fix it, or figuring out how bad you should feel about it? If you're honest, you'll probably realize that you spend exponentially more time on the feeling than the fixing. That's the guilt trap in action. I want you to pause this video right now and tell me in the comments, which of these guilt patterns do you recognize in yourself? Don't worry, we're about to fix them. If you're still with me at this point, I want to thank you. Most people would have clicked away by now because this content challenges everything they believe about themselves. The fact that you're still here tells me you're serious about change. You're not here for comfort. You're here for transformation. And I promise you, the best is yet to come. Now comes the alchemy, the process of transforming your guilt into disciplined action. This is where everything changes, but only if you're willing to do the work. The first step is what I call the guilt audit. Every time you feel guilty, you're going to ask yourself 3 questions. Write these down. Question 1. What specific action did I take or fail to take that led to this feeling? Not your character, not your worth as a person, your specific action. Question 2. What would I do differently if I faced this exact situation again? Not what you should have done, what you would do differently next time. Question 3. What system can I put in place to prevent this situation from happening again? This is where guilt transforms into discipline. Here's what happens when you ask these questions. Your brain shifts from emotional mode to problem-solving mode. You literally change your neurological state. The guilt that used to paralyze you now becomes data, information you can use to build better systems, make better choices, and create better outcomes. This is the difference between people who learn from their mistakes and people who just feel bad about them. It's all about the questions you ask. But here's the crucial part. After you've answered these 3 questions, you have to take immediate action, even if it's small, even if it's imperfect. Action is the antidote to guilt. Not perfect action, not comfortable action, just action. Movement in the direction of who you want to become. Remember, the goal isn't to never feel guilty again. The goal is to feel guilty for exactly as long as it takes to identify the lesson and implement the solution. Productive guilt has a shelf life. It shows up, delivers its message, and then disappears. Toxic guilt overstays its welcome and becomes a permanent resident. This is the alchemy. Transform emotional energy into kinetic energy. Turn the pain of mistakes into the power of improvement. This is how champions are made. Now that you know how to transform guilt into action, let's talk about building sustainable discipline. This is where most people fail, and I'm going to show you why. Most people think discipline means punishing yourself until you comply. But punishment-based discipline is like rocket fuel. It burns hot, burns fast, and then burns out. Sustainable discipline is built on systems, not willpower. It's about creating environments where good choices become inevitable, not heroic. Here's the framework. Every time you identify a mistake through your guilt audit, you don't just plan to do better. You engineer a situation where doing better is easier. For example, if you feel guilty about not exercising, don't just promise to exercise more. Put your workout clothes next to your bed. Join a gym closer to work. Find an accountability partner. The key insight is this. Future you will face the same temptations and challenges as current you. If you don't change the environment, you won't change the behavior. This is where most people's guilt becomes productive. They realize that feeling bad about their choices is less effective than making better choices inevitable. But what happens when you inevitably slip up? Because you will. Perfect discipline is a myth, and pursuing it will drive you insane. Here's the protocol for handling setbacks. Acknowledge the setback without drama. Ask your 3 guilt audit questions. Implement the solution. Move on. The difference between people who succeed and people who don't isn't that successful people never fail. It's that they recover from failure faster. Think of discipline like a muscle. Every time you use the guilt audit process instead of indulging in guilt spirals, you're strengthening your discipline muscle. Over time, this becomes automatic. You make a mistake, you feel a brief pang of guilt, you immediately ask the 3 questions, you take action, and you move on. This is what emotional maturity looks like. It's not about never feeling negative emotions. It's about using negative emotions as fuel for positive action. Remember, progress, not perfection. Every time you catch yourself in a guilt spiral and redirect that energy into productive action, you're winning. The goal is to become the kind of person who makes mistakes quickly, learns from them quickly, and implements solutions quickly. Speed is the enemy of guilt. Let's recap what we've covered today because this information is only valuable if you actually implement it, and most people won't. We started by understanding the difference between toxic guilt and productive guilt. One paralyzes you, the other motivates you. We identified the thought patterns that keep you trapped in guilt cycles. I should have known better. I'm terrible. I always do this, and I've disappointed everyone. We learned the 3-question guilt audit. What specific action? What would I do differently? What system can I implement? We discovered that sustainable discipline is built on systems, not willpower. You engineer your environment to make good choices inevitable. And we established a protocol for handling setbacks. Acknowledge, audit, implement, move on. No drama, no self-flagellation, just progress. But here's the thing. None of this matters if you don't take action. Knowledge without implementation is just entertainment. So I want you to think right now about one area of your life where you've been carrying unproductive guilt. Just one. Apply the 3-question audit to that situation. What specific action? What would you do differently? What system can you implement? Don't wait until you finish this video. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't wait until you feel ready. Take one small action right now. I want you to share in the comments. What's one system you're going to implement this week to transform your guilt into discipline? If this video has changed how you think about guilt and discipline, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We're just getting started. Make sure you watch the next video in this series where we dive even deeper into the psychology of sustainable change. Remember, the guilt you feel today is either the weight that drags you down or the fuel that propels you forward. The choice is yours. Thank you for joining me on Hurt to Grow. Until next time, keep transforming your pain into power and your struggles into strength.